What's going on, everybody? This is Nick from House of Paint 203, bringing you part 2 of the Young Red Dragon series. In part 1, we base coated him and gave him a brown wash on his belly as well as his horns. And in this part, we are going to be applying some midtones to his scales, his wings, and his belly as well. So we still have a lot to do on this model. So let's jump right in. As always, want to give a special shout out to friend of the show, Dominic Marriott, owner and founder of Credit UK, all the way across the pond in the UK. Dominic is a crafter of dice trays, dice vaults, dice towers, dice boxes, you name it, Dominic makes it. You should check out his stuff so that you can up your game at your gaming table today. Also, while you're here, be sure to smite like and slam subscribe so that you can stay up to date on all the latest content that I am putting out there in my quest to paint the manual. And this week, of course, is the first chromatic dragon on our channel, the Young Red Dragon. So just as a reminder, last time we took our Young Red and based him in a mixture of heavy sienna and heavy red. Moving forward, I'm going to be going into my heavy red exclusively and applying that to the miniature almost entirely. For underneath the wings, I'm going to be doing an overbrush. So I have red on my brush, and I'm doing it similar to a dry brush in that I am just following the raised areas, and I'm going against the grain, only I'm using wet paint instead of dry paint. Doing this first because this will inform where I have to start applying some highlights. So now I'll go in here and kind of vector all of that up a little bit. The wings are largely in shadow because they had such a dramatic fold there. I'm not super worried about it, but I do want to make sure I account for the color that is supposed to be in there. So I'm going to be repeating that process underneath this wing. All right, base on the wings is completely applied, so not the base, the mid-tone on the wings is completely applied. I think I'm going to switch gears and try to go into the scales. What I want to do first is try out a dry brush on the scales with the heavy red, see how much that really pops. Going against the grain. All right, so this is going to get more tedious than I thought because this dry brush really isn't super effective which means I gotta start kissing these scales one by one, which I don't really mind. So I'm just gonna show you what I'm doing, and then I'll speed it up a little bit. So just for these scales, since it's the mid-tone, and I really want these scales to pop, because obviously it's a young red, I'm gonna be pretty much touching them up just like so. Staying out of the recesses, obviously, because I want to leave that heavy sienna mixture in there. I'm only painting like kind of halfway up. I'm only doing the ones that are seeing the most daylight. What I mean by that is just the ones that, you know, the ones that are curved like up in here. I'm not really paying too much attention to, but I am being considerate of the fact that I am going to be putting a couple of layers of highlights on him, so I may have to go in and adjust, but alright, so the red scales are now complete as far as the mid-tone goes, and it was almost a entire cover of the scales. Really just want to make sure I kept the base in the recesses to create the discrepancy within those scales. Might still go in with a wash at some point, I'm not sure just yet. But what I want to do first here is go into the frills along his back and really bring those out. And to start off with this, I am trying a dry brush just to bring out some of the more raised areas, but then I'm most likely going to have to go in with an applied highlight in certain areas. Try to do the same thing on the scales of the wings going up. Got some hard to reach areas in here, so if I can get to these with a dry brush, that would be ideal. Now I'm gonna go in and touch up his face a little bit. I think I'm going to give the red a rest for now. I can always go back to it if I want to, and I want to focus in on the belly scales. I've begun here, going back to my khaki, and I've mixed in just a little bit of that brown wash that I used earlier. This is an applied highlight, and I'm kind of just painting on some texture similar to what I did with the young copper. And I'm going to continue that process right down the belly here in a moment, but now I do want to show you something else that I'm going to do. I'm going to go up into the horns. And as you can see, I've done this a little bit already. Is kind of just grazing over the edges and down into the middle a little bit of these different horns, leaving the brown wash in the folds. Alright, so that is what I've got going on in this stage. I'm going to go ahead and speed it on up here for you a little bit. Now I'm going to go in with a bit of a lighter mid-tone on the scales. I'm going to try this out. So I'm mixing a bloody red, which is like kind of an orangish red, with the heavy red that I just used as the mid-tone over the wings. So here I'm going to be covering less than what I covered with the red, with the heavy red. Certainly the raised areas though, so this is going to make that red really pop. And again, I'm kind of using the side of my brush here. You can certainly see that highlight really makes the red kind of come to life. Now I think I'm gonna try to get into the frills. I'm gonna start off with kind of the main frills here. Kind of an edge to those. Gonna switch over to a dry brush to see if I can't pick out any of the smaller details in the frills. Let me try a little bit on his arms here, see if I can get away with it. But I would rather go in with an applied highlight. So I think that's what I'll do. It's very similar to the process I used with the heavy red on the scales. I'm going to be using this for the blood red mix. And that'll really make these scales pop, and I'm going up about halfway on each scale. So now I'm going to go in with a mid-tone on the belly scales here with, I have a mixture of Atyug brown and khaki. Try to bring these up to a little bit of a mid-tone here. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing. Not going to be going as far up this time around, just down towards the edges of the belly scales. Just kind of riding that khaki. Just like that, kind of. And then I'm gonna actually go up on the horns as well and do the same thing. Lightly, kind of just along the tips and the outer edge. All right, just about done with part 2 here, but I want to go in on his eye. I just had it, and I found it right there. Very, very hard to see. But his eye is right here. All right, so I think that is where I'll stop for part 2. Got pretty much all the midtones on. Worked up the belly and the horns with a couple of coats. And now all that's left is final highlights. We have to bring out the claws, the teeth, the spikes around the horns, do a little touch-ups here and there. And I want to add kind of a sooty black to the tips of the wings, as well as the tips of the frills. And of course we'll work on his base as well as his fire breath. And he'll be breathing out. We'll be using some inks for these, and then we'll bring him up to completion. So as always, I thank you for joining me. Information on how to follow me on all my social media platforms is immediately following the video, as is information on how to follow Dominic Marriott of Credit UK. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.